The launch bay of the orbital platform vibrated furiously through the soles of Cadet Thyrus's boots. A deep, bone-rattling mechanical shudder. Then weightlessness. 60 deployment pods severed their umbilicals simultaneously, plunging toward the black rock and toxic mist of Craxus 9. Instructor Galvex's recorded voice looped through the internal comms, mechanical and flat, promising 48 hours of communication blackout and an extraction point 40 kilometers away. Thyrus pressed his trembling hands against his harness. As a theoretical observer on his first field placement, his translucent skin already betrayed his rising panic. The bioluminescent patches along his neck flared bright blue, a biological stress response his species could not hide. Across the pod, the heavily conditioned cadets prepared for the Class 9 environment. Vrenix, a Groxan, locked his massive rockplate exoskeleton into a rigid defensive posture. Ishi, a pelith with hollow avian bones much like Thyrus's own, repeatedly recited a rhythmic cultural verse to artificially lower her soaring heart rate. And then there was Cadet Lily. She sat near the primary airlock, weighing exactly 54 kilograms. Her biometric monitor blinked a steady, infuriatingly slow rhythm. She reached up, casually adjusting a faded, olive-green military cap over her dirty blonde hair. The frayed fabric offered absolutely zero protection against a sulfuric atmosphere, yet she wore it with total comfort. Catching Thyrus staring, she offered a small, terrifyingly calm smile. I must confess something before we go any further. If you think the environment down there was the greatest threat to our squad, you don't know what Earth builds. The pods slammed into the volcanic crust, and the reinforced atmospheric seals hissed open. The heat hit first, a suffocating wave of 48 degrees Celsius. Then came the gravity. Craxus 9 possessed a brutal, fluctuating tidal pull that peaked at 1.3 g. To a Selvan like Thyrus, whose species evolved under the galactic standard of 0.7 g, stepping onto the black rock felt like carrying a second skeleton. His knees buckled instantly. He accessed the squad's biometric registry, searching for the human's baseline data to predict exactly when her internal organs would fail. The numbers rendered across his visor. Earth, Class 12. Standard gravity, 1 g. The mathematical reality settled over him like a physical weight. What was crushing the rest of the squad was merely a 30% increase for her. She wasn't just surviving the pressure. Her biology was built for far worse. The march toward the distant extraction point began under a bruised, blood-red sky. Craxus 9 offered no gentle terrain, only jagged ridges of obsidian and deep fissures spewing toxic gas. Within 20 minutes, the planet initiated its first purge. Green sulfuric mist rolled out from the geyser fields, clinging thickly to the squad's standard-issue atmospheric filters. The high-grade military polymesh hissed as it began to chemically degrade. Panic rippled through the academy ranks. 3 cadets immediately triggered their localized emergency beacons, tapping out of the trial before the first hour had even concluded. Lily did not reach for a beacon. She removed her pack, humming a quiet tune, and pulled out a roll of thick, silver adhesive tape, a mundane repair tool from her homeworld. She wrapped the gray strips tightly around the melting seals of her mask, smoothing the edges down with a gloved thumb until the hissing stopped entirely. She fixed a Class 9 atmospheric hazard with adhesive strips, while he stood there with his gills burning, relying on rapidly failing technology. The ground shifted sharply as the first major gravity spike hit. The pull surged from 0.6 g to the full 1.3 g within 8 seconds. Thyrus collapsed entirely, his bioluminescent patches overloading into complete darkness. Vrenix froze mid-step, his heavy rock plates locking up under the sudden strain. Ishi dropped hard to one knee, her fragile wings folding involuntarily against her back. Lily adjusted her stride in 4 seconds. She didn't stop. She looked back over her shoulder, the green mist swirling around her duct-taped mask. The squad remained anchored to the jagged terrain, utterly broken by the tidal gravity surge. While Vrenix's heavy Groxan rock plates rattled in an involuntary, continuous fear response, Lily simply found a flat volcanic slab and sat down. She reached into her unsealed pocket and retrieved a small foil packet. It was a chocolate ration bar, a wildly mundane luxury item from her homeworld. She tore the wrapper, took a bite, and noticed Vrenix staring. She offered him a piece, noting it probably wouldn't kill him. He took it with trembling claws. A moment later, she plucked a pulsing, neon-orange Craxus fruit from a nearby stalk, took a deliberate bite, and waited exactly 12 seconds while monitoring her own pulse. She swallowed. She noted aloud that it tasted like a battery. Thyrus watched, horrified, realizing she was using her own living body as a toxicology lab on a Class 9 world. The forced march stretched into 14 agonizing hours. Ishi finally collapsed, her heat-vulnerable avian frame failing under the sulfurous humidity. Half the Selvan cadets dropped shortly after, their bioluminescent patches burnt out from gravity overloads. Lily just kept walking. A sudden thermal geyser blasted her olive-green military cap off her head, sending it tumbling into the toxic dirt. She casually walked over, dusted the ash from the frayed brim, and placed it back on her head without breaking her stride. "On Earth, we call this a Tuesday," she muttered, stacking loose obsidian rocks to form a windbreak. Ishi weakly lifted her head from the ash. "What happens on the other days?" "Worse stuff." I had read the Deathworld reports during Academy orientation, dismissing them as exaggerated diplomatic warnings, but now I was watching the reports walk ahead of me, humming a cheerful tune in a crushing gravitational field, while casually building a campfire from volcanic rock and atmospheric methane. The science behind her biology was staggering. Her homeworld's atmosphere consisted of 21% oxygen, a highly volatile combustion accelerant that she breathed constantly as fuel. Her species recreationally consumed capsaicin, a chemical compound that triggered sheer molecular agony in every other known organism. And while our squad desperately needed unconsciousness to repair cellular damage, she simply flooded her system with a toxic stress hormone called adrenaline and bypassed the need for sleep entirely. Night descended. The bioluminescent flora dimmed, signaling the arrival of the hunting cycle. Something shifted in the deep obsidian fissures. 6 jointed legs clicked against the stone. An infrared glow bled through the fog. It was a Korvathi, the 400-kilogram apex ambush predator of Craxus 9. Every alien cadet froze instantly. Ishi's rhythmic poetry stopped dead. Vrenix locked his exoskeleton into a rigid, immobile boulder. She didn't run. Lily turned around, locked eyes with the glowing mass of the predator, and held her ground. The creature's weight shifted. The Class 9 apex predator, 400 kilograms of infrared tracking, ambush-killing muscle, stepped back. Then it stepped back again. It vanished silently into the rock. A Selvan cadet lying near Thyrus, his bioluminescence completely dark from system failure, whispered weakly, "She's not surviving. She's comfortable." Lily sat by the fire pit she had constructed in under 6 hours, using her faded military cap to casually fan the methane flames. Vrenix asked how she knew not to flee. She explained the mechanical logic of ambush predators, citing an earth creature called a tiger, before casually mentioning that humans kept smaller versions of these predators asleep on their own beds. "Honestly, I've camped in worse," she said, pulling her cap over her eyes. Within 90 seconds, she was snoring, a violent vibration of soft throat tissue that terrified the remaining conscious cadets. Main Ek top-of-class theoretical survivalist Hoon. Maripura academic career is Liye the Kumain field situations ko analyze Karsakun. Us rat main any apni field analysis main Lika. Human any camp Benaya. Main any Deka. Report Kadam. Yeah, Mary professional legacy high. When the 48 hours finally expired and the extraction shuttle landed, Lily was already napping at the rally point. Instructor Galvex's automated data readout confirmed she operated at a 340% higher efficiency rate than the next closest survivor. She hadn't survived the trial. The trial had barely survived her. When the shuttle's artificial gravity locked at the Galactic standard, my hollow bones finally remembered what safety felt like. The human beside me hadn't noticed the shift. Outside the reinforced viewport, her olive-green military cap sat anchored to a makeshift flagpole, fluttering endlessly in the toxic sulfur wind.